inspiring to people positive though, think about that.
You gotta find your own beauty.
Yo, we gotta jump into the next topic, man. Or the topic. My fault. That was real fake. We are going to discuss the Black Bourgeoisie. All right, so we're gonna discuss bougie black people, I guess, today. So this should be pretty funny.
I love bougie black people.
I have love for them.
G, do you want to speak on their behalf?
Oh, word?
That's what I thought was gonna happen.
Let me find out. Bougie G. Oh man, listen, man. I've been trying to
G's
get
bad
my
at
bougie call
bougie.
for mad years. I keep getting denied and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, so first up, who are the Black Bourgeoisies? Detail out this individual or this group of people. Yo, my vision or view of this is like real distorted. You know what I'm saying? I just think of literally bougie niggas, yo. You know what I mean? Just like uppity type niggas, dog. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. that's my ignorant perspective. Yo. Someone let me know what this means. I don't know if it is a thing or not.
I give mine.
When I think of bougie, I just think of bougie. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So,
right, so I think like when I think the black bourgeois class, these are like upper to upper middle class black people who strive to be accepted by white society. And so they practically replicate white society, even to the point where they second guess their blackness. They outwardly show self-hatred. They want to separate from the working class black community.
I just cut. You said second guess their blackness?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it in one of the questions.
Yeah.
But these are the people, though, however, they have social clout. I'm not going to say they have like actual power and political power, but when it comes to social capital, they do have that, right? Where they're usually the people that run colleges and universities. They run organizations. They run fraternities, sororities, you know, any like social clubs or social gatherings that are prestigious in the black community are usually led by the quote-unquote black bourgeoisie. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And so, to me, that's how I would define it. It sounds fucked up what I'm about to say, but they're just Negropeans. You know what I'm saying?
Negropeans.
That's interesting.
Nice.
When I think about the black bourgeoisie, I don't necessarily think about people who maybe want to distinguish themselves in the way that you're describing, G, but I think about black people who are very heavy on respectability politics. You know, I think about a certain level of like elitism when like it kind of bothers me when like I hear black people talking about other black people and saying like bum bitches, ratchet ass bitches.
Yeah.
That really, really bothers me. I was out and I heard this girl referring to another girl that way, and I mentioned this before. I myself am not the best at like articulating myself, but I remember reading this article about how, you know, we would read the new Jim Crow and we would invest in that and we would take information from that more than we would from someone who was an inmate who maybe doesn't articulate themselves in the same way, but they would have the firsthand experience. And why weren't we paying attention to those people? Why aren't we putting people on the podium? But because they don't use these like big multisyllabic words, because they're not using all of these like, you know, buzzwords that are popping. Like that's why I have when I heard Azealia Banks on The Breakfast Club and she was trying to make all these points about why she doesn't like Cardi B and calling her a coon and this and this and that. I'm like, okay, you basically just found an articulate way to describe yourself as a hater. Because what I like about Cardi B is that like nobody writes for her. Nobody like she doesn't have a speech person.
Oh, you mean?
Oh no, yeah, I'm talking about what she's like doing interviews and stuff like that.
I was like, whoa.
The ghostwriter thing. I think when you get to a certain point, a ghostwriter is just like having like a complimentary bottle of water in the car or something like that. It just
got MCs out here, you know
right? But you know, I mean, come on.
I hear you.
Your fave does not write their stuff. Your fave does not write their stuff. I'm sorry.
Mine do.
I'm sure that they do.
Hey, it's all great.
But you know, with Azealia Banks, like, she can articulate and say she can use the colorism thing, she can use the light skin privilege thing, she can talk about how, you know, she said something like, oh, we were having all these like powerful, great conversations about feminism, and then Cardi B comes along. But it's like, okay, if you think that Cardi B is an adverse point to that, why are all of these women in support of her? Why did, when she got number one on Billboard, every female rapper in the industry reached out to her and congratulated her? Because her success is amazing, whether you think her music is whack, whether you fuck with her or you do not. So when I think about the black bourgeoisie, I think about people who, because they can articulate themselves in a certain way, they automatically think that they're better because they got their natural hair regimen down, that they're better. You know what I'm saying?
Facts right now, yo.
That's
You already know I agree.
Yo.
yeah. Because I've been on both ends. I
I work out woke you, man. That's what I do every day. Every day.
I want a sweater. Let me get a sweater.
Actually,
No, I hear that. I feel like if we're gonna get personal takes, I'd like go.
Yeah.
Most definitely, like for me, it was like going to college.
Yeah.
And I also I graduated from Woke U 2017. You already.
Okay.
I know.
I mean, but like for me, like my understanding of blackness was only like from a certain socioeconomic background. When I moved to my neighborhood, I remember loving it because it was people who actually understood where I was coming from. Like there's people who didn't have both parents, and there's people who grew up a certain way, there's people who were used to a certain type of lifestyle. You know what I mean? I'm saying all, you know, the hood lifestyle. You know what I mean? I'm saying all this to say like me, blackness was hood. Like that's all I knew. I didn't know black people with money.
Yep.
I come to Woke University and like I'm a well-read person. I sound a certain way. I didn't realize until I met G that, you know, I almost did it. So I met G. And so I talked to G and a couple other very close friends of mine. I was like, yo, like, I didn't realize how uncomfortable I was because I couldn't articulate it. I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, yo, there's something about the people here that are like very, like, the wokeness felt fake as fuck, yo. Like,
Wokeness
like
felt
when I,
fake.
like, the purpose of wokeness for me, and I, like, and this is why I don't even like the term as much as I used to, but I was using the term when it came out. So for me, wokeness was to overcome internalized oppressions, right? So like growing up in the hood, I had to overcome a lot of respectability politics I just didn't like. Like I had a great grandfather who was a Jew during the Holocaust, and he came over here with no family. So he worked mad hard. So that's what was put in me, like no excuses, work hard, learn everything, you can get through it, it's America. And then I realized that just wasn't the case. You know what I mean? I realized it was different from me. I realized that just wasn't what it was. And then I realized I was black. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what the new Jim Crow was doing for me. That's what case reparations was doing for me. Like my journey of learning was to overcome and unlearn like the things that were oppressing me on an individual level. But when I talked about it with kids like from a different socioeconomic bracket, aka the black bourgeoisie, it was like, yo, they don't get it. Like there's something off. Like they get the black part, but like they would simultaneously want to remove themselves from stereotypical blackness every chance that they could get, but at the same time want to be part of it. And that's like, that's like what really, like, that's sidestepping. Like, you hear me talk, like, I'll literally say real shit and they go one through one ear but out the other. Like, it just did not compute. But, like, they will listen and they will defend a Cardi B on social media. But my thing, the black bourgeoisie, what I think about is, like, they'll defend a Cardi B, a Tiffany Haddish, on site.
Yeah.
But the Cardi B's and the Tiffany Haddishes in their own circles,
exactly.
Absolutely not. Like,
fucking
yo, if
it.
I didn't sound as smart as I did, I would not have been accepted in my university. Straight up. Like, straight up. It would not have been my community, and I know that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's my issue with woke community. It feel fake. Because the high key, they just want to be in that power class. Once they get the money, yo, they're not talking this up no more.
Got you.
And just to add to what you say, I agree with what you said as well. I feel like there was like a certain shift in the entertainment industry when a lot of cultural appropriation was happening, and I think like reappropriation came back in the form of like, we're gonna embrace being hood, we're gonna embrace being ratchet. Like when Kim Kardashian would have the braid jewelry and like, you know, the gold grills and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden like being ratchet became this like cool thing. So the girls that were like, I feel like the girls that were like following the more like high maintenance style that was like in hip hop and R&B, suddenly all of a sudden it became like a little bit more like hood, and now that was acceptable. But exactly like you said, they would publicly defend the Tiffany Haddishes and the Cardi B's, but the Tiffany Haddishes and the Cardi B's in their own community that maybe can't afford the shoes that they can afford and aren't hip to, you know, certain web tutorials or certain movies or like cultural nods. They're shitting on them. So
Yo, all right. Can I say something?
No.
I'm probably gonna disagree with all of y'all, right? but I need y'all to walk with me on this.
Sure.
All right. So when I called the Black Bourgeoisie Negropeans, I was dead ass, right?
Okay.
But maybe a more political correct term would be like, maybe they're like a particular caste system, right? Like
They are.
they're like a bracket within themselves because they're quote unquote better than the rest of us, but they're still not white, right? So like they're in their own lane by themselves, and we're gonna talk about it later. But like when W. Du Bois was talking about like the double consciousness, right? It's like you want to be American, you want to be accepted by this country, but when mainstream America looks at you and goes like, oh well, you're just a nigger, you're just a criminal, you're just ratchet, you're just this, you go, okay, you know what, I am not this. So I think they go super hard trying to like separate from those stereotypes or those type of like titles, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, a piece of me low key agrees with it. And the reason why is because some of our actions are counterproductive. And we can pretend like, yeah, like walking down the street saying nigga, bitch, this and that third is cool. But yo, I think that's a problem. I feel like, and I don't want to be a bougie
taking me down
black
these
man.
dark ass roads.
No, but I don't want to be a bougie black man. But that's one of the few things I agree with the bougies. It's like, well, you know what? I don't think, you know what I mean? Like, yo, one thing I really, like, this irks me for real. When I be driving and I see black people throw trash outside their car.
That,
like,
yeah.
And they only do it in the hood.
That's a
but
fact.
You take them to fucking Dedham or Milton, they never do that. But when they're in Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury, niggas will just throw it out. And I'm like, yo, I remember one time so bothered. I want to get out my car, grab the shit, and throw it back in the nigga.
Yeah,
no, but like that's real. But can we talk about the intent, right? I don't disagree with you, but like that to me was the original purpose of woke culture, is to, you can arrive to that place of getting rid of the unhealthy action through education and through talking about it. Oh yeah, through talking about it. You know what I mean? Like having a conversation with people and coming to the realization like, yo, this is actually not good. The problem with bougie black people, like where you agree with them on the surface, but I think underneath you don't agree with them because they're doing it at respectability politics. Like, yo, these white people are looking at us crazy. Why would you do that? Yeah. Who care about, like, white people shouldn't even be part of the conversation.
Yo,
And that's the problem with bougie black people.
Yeah.
Like they
are
concerned about white people.
I think they base their morals. The moral compass is based upon white society.
Yeah.
Our moral compass should be based upon what's better for the black community.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I get labeled conservative hotep by my fellow co-hosts over here.
Who said that?
Yeah.
I said.
But and this is why I'm like, you gotta understand where I'm coming from. I just want the best for our people, right? Now everyone has different ideas of what's the best for our people, right? Bougie black elites, they'll swear up and down their way is like the best way, right? But again, their way, I feel like, is always going to be linked to the white patriarchal system here. And so, and not to mention too, like the powers that be won't even allow them to think. Well, they'll think for the black community, but they won't think for the betterment of the black community. You get what I'm saying? They just perpetuate the status quo. White on top, black at the bottom.
That's exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
I'm on some like, let's flip this shit. Black on top.
I think, perpetuate the status quo, I think, is the definition of the black bourgeoisie.
Exactly.
Because I think once you get into that, it's like fake power. It's conditional power. That's what I'm gonna call it. So like, I forgot who, I was trying to look it up on my drive, but I couldn't find it. But there's an article, like, because I read a lot of socialist stuff, and one of the things that they talk about is middle managers, which happens in almost every society. You know what I mean? So it's like, a middle manager is like when you are being used to push the status quo. So there's a lot of fake nonprofits in every hood that are being used by predatory banks to push the status quo. Gentrification is being pushed by charter schools, fake nonprofits, all these things that are operating as middle managers. I think the opposite of a middle manager, like, I'll take you seriously when you have your money, when you commit something that's called class suicide, is when you're literally using your money not for your own benefit of power, but to only uplift and empower others.
Okay.
That's like a standard I almost have and I expect of you. You know what I mean? If I don't really see a lot of like class or economic suicide taking place in your practices, like if everything feels like there's an end goal to make more money, more than likely you're satisfying the same enemy that's putting people down, and then I can't take it as seriously. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are you doing with that money? Oftentimes you're just putting people down. And you're like, oh, but I'm black excellence. I'm a doctor. Look at me. Like, Yeah, but what are you doing really?
That's
You know
true.
what
So
I'm saying?
it's clear they got the money. Do they have the control? Do they control?
They don't control anything. Yo.
Nah, they don't control shit.
Nothing.
Okay.
And the reason why is because their money comes from white people.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Okay. Nah, I rock with that. Listen, I rock with that. I kind of rock with those descriptions on the bourgeoisie people, they just seem a little uppity to me. So, should the black community trust these black elites, and should we rely on the black bourgeoisie class to aid in our struggle to better our community? If so, what roles
Absolutely
can they
not.
play? Absolutely. Why you say that?
Well, we all went around and we talked about like what the definitions are, and like in my opinion, it's like a community of people who are like well-to-do. It also to me seems like the people that may not be as successful as they are, they generally feel that that's a result of their own demise, like their own lack of ability to work hard. And I think it's easy to underestimate the cards that you may have had in your favor, and that's not to say at all that you didn't have a difficult upbringing. But I'm, from an immigrant family. I have, besides my immediate family, I have no lineage in the United States. So if you are African American and you have cousins or aunt that you can go to, a sibling that you can go to that moved up and moved out of the house, that even if that person at whose house you move into, they're struggling, it makes it a little easier that you have somewhere else to migrate to, even if you have one night to just clear your head and get your thoughts together. So I think that for a lot of people who reach a certain plateau of success, they look down at people who may not be as successful or as notarized as they are, and feel like that their own demise is their own fault, without really factoring in what were their circumstances, like what was their upbringing like. I think that it would be faulty to rely on the bourgeoisie to help the entire black community, because if they have like an elitist view, that's a problem. If they have
already offer it,
right.
Gotcha.
We never talked about this, but when Amanda Seales like says something on social media about like, hey, instead of buying Jordans, go travel the world, go do such and such. My mom, who's trying to build a house in Barbados, will work overtime to take money to go to Barbados, build a house, come back and work. If she comes back that morning, she's at work that afternoon, doing it overnight and making up for that time that she takes off. For people in general, accruing that pay time off, paying money to get a passport, paying money to get an international flight ticket, paying for accommodations internationally, coming back, working, the very next second that you touch down in the city, that's very, very easy to underestimate for somebody who is in that position. I feel like we can be on an individualistic level of unity. I know that from past episode, the guy from Straight Black Pride, he said we have to get this idea that we're not all going to be on the same accord. That is very difficult, but we can think about what's something that everybody has in common. Everybody has in common, for starters. Nobody will get pissed off if you tell somebody to have a good day, have a nice day. That could really, really make somebody's day. Okay. We could start from like paying it forward in those little increments.
It's like their perspective is whack anyway. If you can't
their
respect
perspective,
that,
is buns.
whack. Yo, G, you got anything on it?
I agree with you.
And whenever somebody says I agree
with that
you,
tone,
with that tone,
you know what it is? It's like, because you're right, but because I personally know black bougie people, I guess it's different when you actually know them, right? And
you know some big uppity niggas?
Yeah. No, I actually do.
We all know uppity black.
Like, two of my mentors, they some uppity niggas. That's real. I won't say uppity niggas. That sounds so disrespectful. One of them actually passed. But rest in paradise. But I remember her, and she actually was from Liberia, but her family was like from Trinidad, and they were a part of the original Black Bourgeoisie that went to Africa. So she was always on some like, black excellence, this and that, which I actually appreciated, and I needed that, especially as a young black man. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of this stuff I was learning on my own. But when I got to know her, I was like, yo, you know what? She's actually cool peoples. And I have another one who's a part of all of these organizations, like Lynx. She's AKA. She's a part of the Jack and Jill societies. All of that stuff. Like, and on paper, you'd be like, damn, she's bougie. But when you actually get to know her, she's down to earth. She works in the community. She helps out inner city youth all the time. So that's why I'm a little torn. But I agree with y'all, because at the end of the day, if their mission is just to maintain the status quo, then I guess we'll have to separate. However, on that episode with the dude from the Straight Black Pride movement, whatever, and I was like, we could all like at least focus on a common goal. Now, when we go further past that common goal, then we'll all separate. But there's certain things that we want to accomplish that the black bourgeoisie, the black elites also want to accomplish. We can focus on that. You know what I'm saying? Once we get there, then it's like, all right, if we want to continue this relationship, we could. Or if we need to part ways, all right, deuces. But for that to happen, I feel like the power structure needs to change. It can't be, because you guys are the intellectuals, so therefore you're going to speak on behalf of us common folk. Fuck out of here. However, though, from a strategic standpoint, it does kind of make sense to have somebody who's more cultured or well-versed, who has more charisma and things of that nature. Like, from a strategic standpoint, just to
or a marketable
get things, exactly,
standpoint.
just to get things across easier, like to recruit more people and things of that nature. But once you give them the title of leader, then it's kind of like they're going to just use that for their own self-gain.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe have some sort of board of directors or something, or really just fine-tune what that person's role is, that you have to speak on the behalf of, like, the information that different people from different communities and from different educational backgrounds and levels are contributing.
But that's why I was torn.
But like, here's my thing. Like, I rock with you saying. I just want to be careful of that sometimes, because like what you said at the end is the scary part, because it's like, we have these similar goals, but sometimes they seem similar on the surface, and then you get got. I think business people and politicians do this alike. I think a perfect example is Cory Booker. Okay, I'm an organizer in Newark, right? So, like, the further out from New Jersey, and especially Newark, I say Newark. People in Newark say Newark, like N-O-R-K. It's Newark, except for the people in there. But I've been in there for so long, now I'm saying this weird Newark. Whatever. Gotcha. So, it's like, the further out from Newark you get, the more people rock with Cory Booker. They're like, he's this radical politician. He put out this bill to try and end mass incarceration, which he knew he was going to fail. But whatever. Like, he do all these cute things.
Like Obama.
I'm not going to front. But anyway, so, like, Cory Booker's upbringing, like, he does, like, these interesting things that come off as down, but in actuality, when it came, like, once he got the Senate seat, the only times he's in Newark is when he needs to satisfy his, like, the people who pay for his campaigns. He comes to Prudential, and we all know about Prudentials. I mean, there's one in Newark. They don't get taxed, and they push in gentrification. They're literally just there for the elite. He comes to Prudential and only Prudential. He's never in the hood no more. He gets his money, he shows his face, whatever, and then he's out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't trust, like, it's like, am I going to help? Am I helping you for future gains? Am I helping you for the immediate? And it's almost never really the case. I don't know. But I don't want to get too off track.
I rock with that.
But hold on. Can I say one thing, too?
Quick.
Real quick. Because I remember you brought up, like, middle management, right? Low key, I'm technically, I guess I'll be classified as middle management at Woke University, right? And,
in a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's real.
But it's like, it's a fucked up thing.
I appreciate you that you say that.
Nah, it's real talk, because it's a fucked up thing, because, like, my personal mission is to uplift all the black students. However, they tell me some bullshit all the time, like, don't tell them this, or make sure they do that. And to me, it's like, I'm like the radical dude in my staff. You know what I mean? And it's caused a lot of problems for my career. And it goes beyond just politicians. You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. Most of us, if we live in America, you're answering somehow to some type of white person or white people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't even consider myself radical. I think I should, like, the way I think should be like the way every black person should think. But because a lot of black people are either scared to think this way, or maybe they actually just think like a bougie black person, I am labeled as radical, right? But technically, then we all are like fucked, right? Because I'm pretty sure we're all going to be upper management, and we gotta adhere to the mission statement or the vision of the organization, the corporation, whatever society or whatever organization or affiliation you're a part of. And sometimes it goes beyond just you and your personal beliefs. And so it's kind of like, yo, do you just throw away everything and take your chances on the unemployment line? Right. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes we gotta think about stuff like that.
I'm gonna tie that into this next one. It says, should African Americans emulate other ethnic groups in the United States? If so, would it benefit us as a collective? Like, when you say emulate other ethnic groups, it sounds like code switching. And I think we went through code switching.
I think it's more than just code switching. Yeah. So I remember like when me, you, and somebody else was talking, and he was like, don't you think that we should emulate the Jewish community? And I was like, I see what you're trying to say. However, it's not necessarily going to work here with African Americans.
And also, it's like, as you know, as me being like fake Jewish, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Shalom, my nigga.
You know what I mean? But like, nah, it's like, it's too complicated. I think the ethnic group that you want to look at more is probably black ones that come here and just collectivize amongst each other, because they tend to do better economically and in college, etc., with long-term gain. And I think it's like, I know we had our disagreements on social learning theory and like, you know, what that entails with people inheriting trauma over time, over generations. We have to get into that, but I do think there's clearly a statistical difference between African groups that come here, any ethnic group, you know, all the Caribbean that come here, and how they link up. You know what I'm saying? Every city you find where the Caribbean groups, the African groups are, they link up with each other and they make sure each other, you know, there's a certain standard and they push each other to that standard. And it's like, black people over time, they've done that several times in history, but we all know that it gets like rocked. You know what I mean? Like it gets either gets destroyed, you know what I mean? What have you. Honestly, I think getting back to that, which I'm always for collectivizing, like organization. I think trying to find a way to strengthen community ties with each other, I think is a big step forward. Because right now we work on a very individual basis. I know with my neighborhood, nobody knows that I got my degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really know what other people's moves are. I know one time, I'll never forget, like 2 years ago, I kind of got shook at the thought of graduating, because there's a dude I went to school to play football with, and he came back. He was a big quarterback at Texas. I forgot what school. It was a quarterback over there. Came back to Asbury Park, immediately signed up for student teaching. He was going to try and be a teacher and try and help out my neighborhood. Because of some old shit that I think like his family did, he got killed. And then I talked to people like, I went to the barbershop like that Christmas. I'm like, yo, let me just, you just listen, you trying to find out. So I'm like, listen, like, yo, why did he get offed? And like, I found like a lot of it was jealousy. And that shook me. I'm like, it's like 2015, 2016. I'm just like, yo, I'm about to graduate. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, this is not comfortable. Like, I still don't even like moving too loud at home. And it's like, I want to lift my neighborhood because it's getting gentrified. But at the same time, it's like, I'm like legit sometimes put off by trying to go do that lifting. And it's like that lack of community with the people you grew up with. That's scary. You know what I'm saying? I think we should, in terms of ethnic groups, I don't think that happens. Like if a Liberian graduates and comes back to their Liberian neighborhood, like hella other people graduate, I find out, it's like, yo, but when are you getting your master's? When are you getting your doctorate? What is your plan? Nobody asked me about my plan. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm figuring that out by myself all the time.
Yeah, but
another thing that made me think was in a couple communities there are letters that go around saying like they're establishing this kind of, not necessarily like a community watch, but like, hey, if you're an elderly person and you need a ride to the station, that you can call this person, they'll give you a ride to such and such station. So I think that establishing trust would have to be the foundation. And I don't even know how to wrap my mind around doing that, but that was like the first thing. Like I did get a letter saying like, hey, like you want to join this community email thing, you'll get noted about like yard sales, if you need help with this, if you need somebody to cook you a plate, blah blah blah. But I was like, well, I don't want nobody like in my business knowing like da da da. So trust is a big thing.
And also just with the organization piece, it's like I think we underestimate sometimes how much white supremacy puts money into disorganizing. They literally pay bread to make sure a Black Panthers doesn't happen. They like are constantly doing that.
One of the further questions.
Yeah, so like, you know, like even like with my job, it's like, I don't know if I know the Supreme Court case that what's it called, the Sum decision, and essentially like you don't have to do the mandatory fee to be in the union no more, or like if you don't want to be in the union and your job has a union, you don't have to pay a fee, which is big because that hurts the union's pockets, and they've been hurting unions for decades now, right? And it's like like now that businesses are hip to that, there's millions, if not billions of dollars across countries going to be paid to make sure, like, not only are y'all getting hurt this way, but we're going to use that to make sure nobody unionizes. And that therefore they have more power in terms of how they pay people and what kind of benefits they give people. Right. It's the same thing with black people getting together. Like, they know if we're more solidified that they can't push us around. So they spend tons of money to make sure that never happens. You know what I mean? So like, I think we underestimate how powerful like just simple organization is.
Yeah. And then I want to kind of backtrack to the question actually, right? Comparing ourselves to like other ethnicities, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at America, what a lot of people don't even factor in is the brain drain, right? We get the creme de la creme of every country. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real. So you got to think about, like, even when you look like in Boston, right, there's like a large like Haitian, Jamaican population, right? Especially in like Mattapan and like Nigerians and like High Park and stuff, right? A lot of these families were like, there's some of these countries don't really have middle class. Either you're poor or you're like somewhat rich. A lot of these families were somewhat rich. You know what I'm saying? So they had the resources to actually get to America. However, when you look at like Southern Florida or whatever, right, with those type of Haitians, those are the ones that were like dirt poor, like hopped on like a raft and like swam there and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So now, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is with African Americans, they were all just brought here, right? So it's not like African Americans are like, yo, I'm trying to go to this place and we're just going to bring the best of the best to this place, this location. We're all just here, right? So now we have the successful black people, but they may be the minorities, right? So when we see, like, say the Nigerians and everyone goes like, oh, they're so educated, the average household has like 2 degrees, advanced degrees, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. When you really think about it, these are the families that are now becoming the new black bourgeoisie or the black elite. Like the universities today, right? When you look at like most of the, like the top colleges and universities, a lot of those black students aren't African American at all. They're Caribbean and African students. Some are international, some are like first generation, like, but they come here and maybe it's because, like, you know, they were the lucky ones, or maybe their parents just had more money than the average person in, say, like a Nigeria or Haiti or whatever. So when they get here, they're the ones who had the resources, who had the drive for education and academic excellence. So then they become successful, right? Hold on. I just add one last point. I should have brought this up earlier, right? There's like waves to the black elite, right? The original black bourgeoisies were usually like at the time they were called mulattoes, right? Where the slave masters would have children and they were like, you know what? I'm not going to enslave them. They look like me. They were like called like the freemans, right? Or the free blacks. They were like the first wave. Then they were the ones that came from the Caribbean who identified like, oh, we're black, however, we're not like these African Americans. We're better than them. And then now when we fast forward, the next wave is probably going to be either West or East Africans. If it's probably already happening right now. Already happening. So we got to remember, like, we're all, like, African Americans are just here. It's not like they could be like, yo, I need to get an ID card that says, yo, I'm a bougie. You know what I'm saying? I be joking like, I need my bougie black card, but, you know, like, they don't have it. So they're always going to be compared, right, to, like, the low performing kids and you know what I mean? So like when we think of like public education in Boston, we think about the shittiest schools. But like, you know, you think about like public education. I don't want you to go too far. No, my bad. Go ahead.
No worries. Did you have anything else? Because I know I don't know if before I got time for 2, but I want to try and squeeze all 3. But it looked like you wanted to say one more thing.
I just wanted to comment because it's like, yo, what you're saying is like the thing that I noticed the most is that like I feel like Caribbean and African people get caught up in the mindset of individualism and this capitalism thing. It's like they see black people and they're just like, yo, why aren't y'all working hard? All this money available, etc. And it's like that duping doesn't allow us to really work with each other as much as is necessary. And it's like I noticed that so much in college. Like I have best friends like. She's from Ethiopia. She's talking to another Ethiopian, right? They're having a conversation in the library, and they really just shitting on people from the hood, yo. And he fake from he's from Boston, but I know I looked him up. Yo, you know he got he went to like this he went to like a special school, and he actually lived on the outside and drove into whatever, right? But anyway, so like they're just talking like, I just don't respect when people don't have no drive and they don't really work hard to get it. Like, there's no excuse for that. And then you act a certain way. You know, sounding mad bougie. And I'm sitting here like, y'all describing the kind of person that I was growing up and people I know growing up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm here right now. They're like, oh, but you're different. You're special. And that's when I realized, like, yo, they really just think I'm different. Like, they really just think I worked, quote unquote, extra hard. And that's why I told you about the poster up on campus. Like, I'm not going to say I didn't work hard. But when they put my poster up on campus, it legit bothered me at first because I was just like, this is weird. This is like, extra weird.
Like tokenizing?
Yeah, it felt like tokenizing, number one. And I had to check them because the original quote they had for me was something like, I'm learning to talk about race in a way that others can hear me. I was like,
you gotta put shit down.
I was like, nah, you could not put me up
this
on
motherfucker thinking Malcolm X?
Yo, facts. I'm like, I ain't see that. And I was like, they said that we heard that based on the interview. I'm like, well, you didn't listen to my interview. Clearly. You know what I'm saying? I was like, y'all can not put me up, or y'all could put up one of these 5 quotes. And they picked the tamest one. And I remember me and G called it. I was like, which one do you think they took? He was like, this one. I'm like, yeah, that's the one. You know what I mean? Like, but like, no, it's like, I peeped that throughout college. I think like that duping is like really a problem that I think we need to engage more, because that's why with yesterday's conversation with the other brother, it's like, yeah, I'm for like trying to teach them certain things as long as it's not under the premise that they're not doing enough, because I think even with black people being poor, we outwork the whole world. I don't care what nobody say. The poorest black family is working harder than the richest white family. It's literally just information, but that's just how I feel.
I agree with
but
that.
yo, so let me jump into this next one. In chapter 4 of his book, Black Bourgeoisie, E. Franklin Frazier claims Negro intelligence, or Du Bois's talented 10th, were created by philanthropic foundations supported by Northern industrialists. He writes, the Negro intellectual has been forced to shape not only his philosophy of racial adjustment, but his general social philosophy according to the social philosophy of the Northern philanthropic foundations. If black politicians, educators, civil servants, black nonprofit organizations, and educational institutions all rely on corporate funding, aren't we all just as problematic as the black elites if we are all dependent on white philanthropy?
Yes.
You say, oh, just right off the rip, yes?
Yeah.
You think we're all...
Nah, I just it's like all the criticisms we have of the Democratic Party we could have for black people within nonprofit, quote unquote, social justice work, right? Because it's like Democrats will talk a great game, but at the end of the day, you know, they're controlled by corporations, and we know that. And the talented 10th, to me, is like an embodiment of respectability politics in a way.
I know what you mean.
I think they're bought.
I definitely need to hear more from like y'all two's perspective.
So, like, as you know, I got my master's in nonprofit management.
And
while I was getting my master's, I realized, but I was like, man, all of this shit's just a hustle. Like, yo, for real, like, it's grimy. Like, like literally, it's all about convincing corporations to give you money. And so, to me, if that's the goal, or that's one of the main objectives, because this is how you're gonna finance, you know, to fulfill your mission. That means you gotta cater to them, because they're your donors, they're your major donors, they're your, you know, your funders and things of that nature. So when you think about it, you don't want to do things that's gonna upset them, right? And not to mention with 501c3s, right? They can't advocate for particular politicians or anything like that, right? You could lose your 501c3 status, and then you can no longer be tax exempt. You know, there's like a lot of issues that they do to put like restrictions where it kind of makes you like, I feel like I need to do this for the community, but if I do, this could negatively affect my organization. Or if you're, and this is what I liked about E. Franklin's book. He talked about how the black bourgeoisie, they're married to these corporations, these white funders, right? Because if they try to do anything else, their careers are done. And it doesn't necessarily matter what industry they're in. If they're in education, they're too radical, you get blacklisted. If you're a politician, you're too radical, you won't get funded. If you don't get funded, you can't get reelected. Like, this is like, just to be a senator now, it's like you have to spend like $1.3 or $1.4 million on your campaign. That you ain't getting that shit from no black community. You see what I'm saying? So you got to get it from somewhere.
That you have to spend that much money.
Exactly. This is my problem, where the last person to do this that was like actually a goat at this was actually Marcus Garvey, right? where he literally unified black people, convinced black people to donate to him via mail. Like, people would literally put money in envelopes and sending it to him. What black leader do we know where all of us, like, just talking about in this room, where we go, yo, we support this motherfucker 100%, and I'm going to give, like, 10% of my paycheck to make sure that this dude's or this woman's career is successful.
Y'all didn't donate to Umar Johnson's school?
Shout out to Umar Johnson. That's my guy, yo.
Omar was, I'm not even going to say he's close to Marcus Garvey.
He's not.
He at least had the black community thinking about, should we give him money? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
let's not say the black community. Let's talk about the, you know what I mean?
The whole test, whatever.
Yeah.
Pretty much what I'm saying is,
The subsection of.
Like, when you think about it,
I think he had all of us in the beginning there. You know
yeah,
I believe that so bad.
Matter of fact,
He's a good speaker, you know.
So Fortune.com.
I
remember Fortune magazine, like on Fortune.com, they did like a great like piece on why black men are leaving corporate America, right? And because they were like, yo, we have to code switch.
Forbes did this.
Fortune magazine, yeah.
Oh,
so they were talking about how black men in particular felt like they were doing two positions at work. They were doing their position and they were being like the ideal Negro, right? Yep. And just that stress alone was like, yo, it's not even worth it. So they quit. You know what I mean? A lot of them went to like entrepreneurial ventures and things of that nature. But when you think about it, like all of our leaders, even our church pastors, deacons, whatever, you gotta think about it. Where do they go? You know, they get the money from the community. However, they still gotta answer to the banks. You know what I'm saying? And if the banks go, yo, listen here, motherfucker, we need more money, or we need this, or we need that, they're gonna go to the congregation, like, yo, listen here, we need more money. You know, stop playing.
Or if the banks are like co-signing certain developments in your neighborhood that are pushing people out, they need you to not talk about them there.
Thank you.
Like, people are going to this church. Like, my family member just got kicked out because of high rent. What are we as a community gonna do about it? Yeah. Black church ain't doing shit.
Pastor's scared because he's like, yo, I like my building.
They are doing,
what's up?
I was just gonna say, if they are doing anything, because there are certain churches that, like, if you're low on rent, if you have trouble paying bills, you can reach out to them. But some of them look at, okay, well, how much did you tithe? How often do you come to church?
A lot of churches be like, yo, you be tithing?
Yeah.
Which is
some churches.
Those are them black bougie niggas. Them Creflo dollars.
with the prayer cloths
Past
and
the big bucks. You know what I'm saying?
The Poland Spring bottles of holy water for $29.99. Yeah,
that's
filling up the bowl.
It be like that.
Last question: the Black intelligentsia. This is a new word for me. I just read this.
Oh, for real?
I'm not familiar with.
I'm not hip to that either.
Oh, yo, Cornell West talks about that shit.
Yo, it sounds like you need your bougie card quicker than
yo.
I mean,
give it to him.
I keep applying. Them niggas denying.
You got the masters saying intelligentsia. You know what I mean?
He said all the buzzwords.
Woke you, woke you. Got me right.
I was reading this like intelligentsia.
Intelligentsia.
So listen, the Black intelligentsia have always been in the forefront of the black movements and social progress or lack thereof. At one time, the Black intelligentsia was synonymous with the Black bourgeoisie. How do we build a new Black intelligentsia that consists of working class African Americans? Are you just talking about like intellectual black?
Yeah, can you
folk?
summarize the
intelligentsia is like the people that are of high esteem, that are the intellectuals, so they think for the community, right? So like Du Bois was one.
Angela Davis.
Yeah. Even Booker T. Washington, to a degree, was also one. You know, today would probably be like a Cornell West. Even Michael Eric Dyson will be considered one. You know, so these are the people that.
So this is a term that's descriptive, not necessarily like an actual thing.
What you mean?
So like intelligentsia is just
these
a word
are
that
like
describes.
so these are pretty much the people that are. They seek
this isn't a group. There isn't a group.
No.
It's not a black intelligentsia.
It's not like a black intelligentsia consortium.
I'm about to get my t-shirt.
It's not like the Pentaveret or like, you know, like the Rothschilds and nothing like that.
It's just it's literally like, it's just a term to coin like the smart people. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they're the ones that usually are critical race theorists and things of that nature. So they're the ones that you go to kind of push the black community forward. And so the issue with that is they're usually they're usually from like the communities that are known to produce the black elites, right?
Yeah.
But my issue is, especially working at Woke University, right, where we're surrounded by the inner city, you're surrounded by projects and everything, but no one goes out to the projects and talks to those people and see like what's their point of view, right? And I always compare this to a lot of like academics. Their wisdom comes from theory, right? But a lot of people in the hood, their wisdom comes from experience.
Right.
How
and
can you mesh the two? So I'm not saying to disregard the black intelligentsia. I'm saying, okay, how can we change it from just these bougie niggas?
And that's what I was talking about earlier with like the elitism. And then the problem with that is that, okay, if you go out in the field and you try to do the groundwork, don't just cherry pick from people from certain areas and communities and not give the proper just due from the people that's giving you all of this information and access for free. How do you evenly spread that around?
Yeah, I feel like the astronomers need to acknowledge that they're astronomers, and the astronauts they don't need to acknowledge it. They're already there. You know what I mean?
I took one of the biggest mistakes of college for me was taking the Anthropology of Africa course, which sounds lit, but it was taught by a white woman, so I panicked. I panicked big time.
I would have walked up in there like, fuck out of here, son. I'm drawing right now.
I'm dropping this class.
What I learned about there's a lot of issues in anthropology I really don't rock with. Essentially, it's dominated by like white people who go into Africa and do the whole white savior thing. It's honestly, I really don't like the entire discipline. But what I do rock with, and it is something they started doing it the most, and other disciplines are doing it more often, is ethnographies, where you go in and you literally like talk to the people and use that to kind of dominate what your research is.
You said ethnography?
Yeah, so it's like when you talk to people in that particular culture. So if you're going to study oil in Nigeria, right, a strong paper from an anthropologist would include stories from the people in the Niger Delta. If you didn't do that, you're not an anthropologist. And that's the only thing I respected. I was like, yo, she kept criticizing my papers like there's no ethnographies here. Because for me as a political scientist, it's like I just evaluate, observe, analyze everything. But it's like I don't really look at the individuals that much. So I respected that. Other than that, anthropology is whack.
Yeah, like for example, I have like a colleague that her research was on like sex work in East Africa, and literally went to like several different like East African countries and interviewed women who are actually like prostitutes or street workers. Like, you gotta do the field work,
right?
You know? But when it comes to like how to uplift the black community, you don't necessarily see people from the hood. I feel like I'd be shitting on Black Lives Matter, but I'm not trying to. But again, you're talking about educated black women, right? So yeah, their circle is completely different from, say, like the circle. Not necessarily. I'm an educated dude myself. I'm around educated people, but like let's just say like me a couple years back, right? It's a bunch of dudes like me a couple years back, like let's say in high school or whatever.
Okay,
it was just more than a couple years though.
Shut up. Anyways, young in spirit, dog. Young in spirit. You know what I'm saying? But what pretty much
ages in the mental.
Exactly. Exactly. But like, if we go to like the hood, we at least know. Let's just say they're not the greatest at articulation, right? But you know how they feel. So if you know, okay, you know what, gentrification is actually hurting them. We know that. Or police harassing them and all of that shit. Yeah, they may have a hard time articulating themselves. They probably will do a horrible job in front of a camera. They'll probably swear. They'll probably be, upset. And it may look bad from a PR standpoint. However, if you really, truly care, you'll still want them involved in the planning of something. But to me, the issue is, how do you convince bougie black people to go to the hood? I have students that are highly intelligent. I'm like, God damn, these motherfuckers are going to do great things. But they're scared to go to Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan. You know what I'm saying? So they'd rather stay in there like Ivory Tower at Woke University and intellectualize themselves to death. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the students who aren't willing to also aren't from poor backgrounds too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the ones who are tend to be more open. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I think what you're talking about is like, I remember when the new Jim Crow first came out, I was in high school. It was before it got popping though. Like, it literally was a book I just saw at my library. I picked it up. I was like, yo, this is wild.
I couldn't keep up. I couldn't get past the introduction. You know, I wasn't there yet. But I also wasn't confident personally in terms of what I absorbed. It's wild to me, like, what a good education does. So I don't think it wasn't that I wasn't smart. It was just public education. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I just didn't have the tools really developed. I don't think people realize, like, I'm a good talker. But sometimes I really don't know what I'm talking about. Everybody thought I was smart, so I was just listening a lot. And I would go back and forth, and I'm good at doing devil's advocate. But most of the time I did devil's advocate just to learn. Like, I'll be around some super intelligent people, and I would just duel with them, and I don't think they would realize I didn't know 50 to 75% what the heck they was talking about. But then after doing that for a year, I picked up New Jim Crow, and I was able to read it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just different. But, like, I know that journey personally. So I know the challenges that kids who are going to a public school that isn't really giving them sufficient education, what they're dealing with. So I know how to talk in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Interesting to hear you say that too, because it's like you found your own path to absorbing and retaining the information. Yeah.
Like, everybody learns. Like, for me, it's talking. I learn the most from talk. Like, I have a hard time. Like for me, art is like, I like writing. I love writing, but I have such a hard time doing it by myself. But, like, if after a great conversation with people, that's when I go back. Like, I almost always write after hanging out with people. Because, like, that's how my mind grows, is from debating people. Which is why people get frustrated with me, because I never take a stance most of the time. And if I do take a stance, it's just because it's not your stance. Shout out to G. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's like, that's how I learn. You know what I mean? It's
but hold on. I will say this to add on. And I think because I've been around so many bougie niggas, I think it actually helps me a lot in trying to, like, wake up my fellow man or my boys and stuff like that, right? So it's like the stuff that I talk about at work, if I never worked there, I probably still would. Think the way I think. I'll probably be on some, like, bitches, females, all of that stuff, right? But because I'm challenged at work, and I'm forced to, like, critique myself and analyze my actions and view things from not just from a conscious level, but also from your subconscious level. You know, you go like, okay, I really need to be more reflective. I really need to consider how this makes other people feel and stuff like that. But I'm learning that from the bougies. You see what I'm saying? If I'm in the hood, I'm just keeping it real. Niggas might be like, yo, dog, shut the fuck up with all that emotional shit. You know what I'm saying?
But the same way we listen to them.
Or niggas will be like, yo, dog, shorty should be artists and workers. You know what I mean?
But the same way that we're learning through having an open
churning
mind,
butter.
I think that expectation still needs to be held from them as well. And that's why I feel like college for me was a little bit insufficient. I feel like I'm doing all this listening. I'm learning about credit scores. I'm learning about financial shit that I don't know about. I'm listening to them. And I'm learning a world of things, and I never felt like my world was really that talked about. I didn't feel heard until I was around G. And I don't even feel like people like me, G, and a couple other dudes really felt heard like that. Like, it just never really was. You're in college, you're educated, you're not from your word. Whatever. You know what I mean? But it's just like...
Low-key, I actually did.
No, facts. Like, the problem with colleges, especially private universities, is like, they don't... Bougie Black America doesn't listen enough. Like, if you never were from that world, you can't take that away from them. Get it. You grew up with parents who have money. It is what it is. But, like, you have to listen. There's shit that they literally just didn't get. You know what I mean? Like, they just can't wrap their head around it. It's like they don't listen.
I also do feel like there is, like, a certain percentage of Black bourgeoisie people who do come from these really poor communities, but have... and have successfully made their way out, and it's not all, but some who have such crazy PTSD from where they came from, and they're like, there's no fucking way that I'm going back to that. You know, they're a lost cause. Like, I got lucky. Person
must have been like 5th generation college student. Hell no. Man, he probably the first generation. He just
his name is Devontae. Okay,
but I fight with that all the time though. Like, that PTSD is real, because I still
that's a very real thing.
When I was on like my 2nd or 3rd year, I don't know if y'all been through this. I don't want to give too much, but I don't live this. Like, I'm thinking about this all the time now. It's like I lost like an itch I had, because I grew up like with insects and mice and cockroaches and all that. And I didn't know I had the itch until like I left. I'm in Boston. I live, and everyone would complain. Like, that's a funny thing with British people. They complain about dorms, but dorms are beautiful. I'm like, yo, I'm in.
Fucking penthouse suite.
That's what I'm saying. Like, kids would be like, yo, this dorm's better than this dorm. I'm like, all these dorms are legit.
Amazing.
Fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? So when I lost the itch, I haven't had that itch since I was like 20 before I transferred.
Okay.
And like I'm bumming off my great grandparents because they have money, and like I'm living with them, My sister still lives where we lived in the hood, and it's like
Yeah.
I gave my room away. Like, yo, rent out that room, make some money real quick. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, I'm not coming back. And it's like, yo, I could sit here and judge bougie people, but what you talked about is real because I don't think I have the capacity to do that again.
Well, I think that there's a difference between that and people who are like, they don't fuck with people from the hood who come from that hood.
Oh yeah,
and they've made their way out of it. Yeah. And we might.
Nah,
no, I'm not saying it's you. But
I know a lot of brothers.
I know people like that too.
It's like motherfuckers is lawyers.
It's like you grew up next to these
entrepreneurs, and they're all like, yo, we out of here. They moving to like Malden, Wentworth, Wentham, all that.
Even now, like the saying of like, you know, the goal is to get out of the hood. Now that's recently changed to like the goal is not to get out of the hood. It's to build yourself up to go back to the hood, build it up, share what you've learned, what you've acquired, and spread that around. But I mean specifically people who grew up next to these people. These people were their brethren, their sisterin, and they made it up out, and then they're brand new. You know?
Yo.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
But you blaming though, I'm just saying XXX just got murdered by some niggas from the hood. I'm just saying. He got clapped. He wasn't even in the hood. I'm just saying. So
yeah, well, that's true.
I told you about from a couple years back. You know,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You came back. Niggas got killed. Niggas is haters. Niggas they can't help themselves. They hate us.
Chinks got killed in his hood, yo.
Facts, yo.
Chinks, wow.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
that jealousy you talk about.
That bundles, man.
But I mean, when people are hungry, what are they gonna do? You know, you sell the stuff that you stole off of XXX, and you gonna buy yourself food or whatever for.
Yeah, it's a much larger problem to just the environment being so toxic. You know what I mean?
And
it's
that's
like
a hard thing to figure out how to overcome and combat. Yeah.
Nah, but we gotta figure out this last question though. How do we bring the two parties together? The uppities and the
It's the same way you do with anything else, yo. The people listen to each other,
We'd have to
yo.
make it a group.
So I said this like in a past couple episodes. I've said that black people of color can't end racism. Women can't end sexism. It's up to men. It's up to the people who are the oppressors. So there's people who are colleagues with these bourgeoisie people. There's black people that are well-to-do, that are successful, that don't have that mentality, that don't have that mindset. So it's up to those people to say like, hey, we all need to change our thinking. Why is our first thought when we go to Dorchester, Roxbury, blah, 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 oh God, it's gonna be a bunch of niggas, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Why is that our first thought? Or even when you talk about the Nas and Khalees situation, why is your first thought that she's lying? Why isn't your first thought that she's telling the truth? So I think that for the people who are in a more powerful position, being the bourgeoisie people, they need to congregate with themselves and figure out, hey, what the fuck is our problem? I think it starts with that.
Well,
I think that on the other end,
with you, but
I do think on the other end for people who
I want Sheens to have the last word. If that's cool.
Like I think on the other end there's an attitude of people.
I can respond, dog.
I've let this one on for way too long.
I was just going to say lastly that on the other end there are some people who are on the opposite side, like, oh, she thinks she's better than me. Oh, she thinks she's so cute. Oh, this nigga thinks he's hot. Oh, this nigga thinks he's flashing or whatever. And that thinking on that side needs to change too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen. We gonna wrap it up, yo. I apologize. I've let this go on very long though.
Can I say one thing? I swear. It's
only
listen.
5
seconds. It's 5 seconds.
Let me.
But no one can say nothing to him.
No. It's gonna be so. Just one thing.
I know how hard
it requires someone to first teach that bougie person to view those working class people as equals. That's what I'm saying.
Couldn't even let the lady have the last word.
No, it's okay.
It's cool. Don't worry about it. That's all right. We see what you know what I mean. But hey, listen. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in. You know what I mean? I see. Thanks everyone for tuning in. So thank you for coming through, yo. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you. You know what I mean?
Thank you for being here.
Great episode. As always, make sure you go to the website, people. Thank you for listening. Go to upanicd.com, upanicd.com. I had an extra D in there, my fault. But upanicd.com. Go down TC, join the convo. Do so the best way you know how, and that's it. It's You Panic. Did you panic? Talk to you next week.